Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today's guest is Michael Venidis, the Chief Experience Officer at Ryno Strategic Solutions. They are one of the top digital marketing agencies in home services. If you're in the industry, I'm sure you've heard of them. You've seen them. They've got their own amazing podcast, which our CEO was just on recently. It was a great episode. If you know Michael here, you know he's anything but typical. He's got a really cool, powerful story, which we're going to dig into. Surviving a life-threatening event, shifting his trajectory, building an amazing career focused on leadership and growth, authenticity, purpose. At Ryno, Michael helps shape a culture of accountability and excellence. They serve some of the biggest and well-known brands in HVAC, plumbing, and all over home services. He's also a strong advocate for MAP, which is amazing. He's gone through the workshop himself, implemented some of the systems, and helped Ryno scale. So in this episode, we're going to talk a lot about, your experience, your background, some of those events, how they shaped your leadership, and mindset. So Mike, thanks so much for being here. We're super excited to jump in.
Andrew, thank you for that introduction, man. It's a very humbling one, and I'm happy to be here. Big fan of Mac, baby. Everything starts with the goal.
That's right. All right, so I have a ton of questions. Before we jump in, maybe just explain to the audience what you do at Ryno and what Ryno does.
Yeah, so I'm our Chief Experience Officer at Ryno, and Ryno Strategic Solutions is a digital marketing agency for the home services specifically. It's existed since 2008. And, I think what I love about it that really separates it from a lot of the other agencies is that just stop at the lead. It's not just about lead generation. It's about connecting to the actual home service contractors all the way through. That includes CSR coaching, and trying to line up partnerships to assist with, the closing of sales, et cetera. Like, we've just always been huge advocates of genuinely caring. It's personal for me, right? Like, you talk about my hardship story, and the blue collar industry has given me a whole new life, and, I've built my foundation off of it. So it holds a dear place in my heart. And the vision for Ryno has always been to build an agency that genuinely cares and to make sure that contractors know, like, they're being supported and looked out for.
Okay, that's awesome. And so, look, there's a million agencies out there, and I'm sure a ton of them are doing outreach to all these home services companies trying to get their business. And, they span the gamut of horrible to amazing. And it sounds like you guys have taken the approach of just going deeper and making sure that it's not just like, hey, we're flipping you a lead and it's up to you. You're getting deeper to make sure that they're actually taking advantage and turning that into real business.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, right? I think one of the unique values that I bring to the industry is over the 13 years with the organization, I had so many different roles. I started off in reporting, listening to the actual phone calls that happened with the CSRs, helped develop our reporting program. Then I got involved into doing the actual strategies and mastering the art of search engines, SEO, PPC. And then when I went in to represent the contractors, I had to learn how to represent the business, how to communicate with entrepreneurs, how to talk about goals and growth. And once you piece all that together and you enter leadership development in the executive team, you get a lot of gifts along the way. And if there's anything I've learned is your marketing agencies should really specialize in what you do. There's a lot of agencies out there, that'll take on anything, right? But like, when you get into things like paid advertising and some of the unique tactics that help these contractors grow, the better that your agency understands the actual business, the buyer psyche, and things like that. Like, what does a maintenance membership do for you? How does it get you into the homes? What are the weather conditions for HVAC contractors? And when demand goes up and down, most of the buyers are reactive. general agencies don't do this type of homework because they have to learn so many different types of industries and trades. So for us, rather than go wide and do anything, we went all in for the home services to be true experts so that we could really relate to the people that we represent.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned so many, but just understanding the language and how to speak to that audience and how to speak to the buyer and what they're going to respond to. You'll have all that experience and data to fall back on. That's super valuable.
That's right.
All right. All right. Let's start with going into your experience. So you were shot twice, which is there's got to be a crazy story there, man.
At the same time.
So, all right, tell me a little, you don't have to go into the whole thing, but tell me what you can. And how did that shape your trajectory and how you look at life?
Yeah, man, it was just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I was at an art walk downtown and just hanging out with some friends, and it just went south. We ended up being targeted, and I was basically an attempted robbery. It was a gang affiliation. They caught me while I was alone, and it just went sideways. He ended up getting shot twice and left for dead, over a long portion of the night. I mean, the kid ended up being 13 years old. It was all gang entry affiliated, and
wow,
it was a wild experience, man, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. It made me take a hard turn. You reevaluate your life. You have a lot of time to reflect while you're in recovery. For me, it wasn't just, you get shot and you walk out in a couple of days. I mean, it was an emergency. I'd lost a lot of blood. I had to go through a surgery, and the recovery process was it took me probably a full year before I was really up, living a normal life again. And the beautiful thing about it is when you're stuck and you've got restrictions and it changes like the parameters of your life, you got to make some changes. And I got out of the music industry where I was trying to be a front man, and, I was just trying to pay some medical bills. But here we are. It turned into a whole new career and gave me a whole new love and appreciation for the blue collar industry and the home services. And I've grown to just absolutely fall in love with it, man.
You never know where life's going to take you. That's pretty crazy. So before the show, we were talking, and you're also from Jersey. I was born in Jersey. Did this happen in dirty Jersey, or is this somewhere else?
Yeah, this was in Phoenix, Arizona.
All right. Not Jersey's dirty. Off the hook.
But this was about 12 years ago. But it's funny, I didn't really start openly like sharing the story as much as I do till maybe the last year or two. Because I was always self-conscious. I worried a lot what people thought. I thought they would judge me for looking for like a pity party or for attention. And one day, through the help of coaches and mentors, I just realized like this is my testimony, and if I was louder about it, I'd have more opportunities to actually make a difference. And today, I think more about one person that really needs somebody, like me, versus 50 toxic people that are judging me for the wrong reasons, right? Like,
totally.
I'm in my life anyways.
Totally. Yeah. I think those types of stories are powerful, man. And you're right. It could help somebody. So I think it's great that you share. All right. So moving on. So then you went on, and now you're at Ryno, and you're helping them, and it's a fast growing agency, and you guys are obviously doing amazing things. Let's talk about the agency. Like, what's something when people look at these agencies like Ryno, what are some people not understand about what it takes to scale in home services? It's obviously super competitive. There's tons of companies out there. Like, is there anything that comes to mind that some people might not think about?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think one of the common misunderstandings is like what digital marketing can do and at what rate can it do it. I think that there's this false perception that you push this button and we can just start making leads appear, but in a weather-based industry, especially HVAC, right, there really is only going to be as much opportunity as demand allows, so I think you have to really get tactical in how you're really trying to drive opportunities or what your expectations can be from digital. And I think you have to go into these relationships with clear expectations, goal setting. I think it's wise to always evaluate what reporting looks like and what promises are being made. And I think it's also very, very important to understand the capabilities of each of the different channels that occur in the digital world, because people talk about things like SEO, PPC, LSA, and there are restrictions that come with each of these different types of channels that you can use through search engines. I mean, you really should be aware, because if you're dealing with an industry where the majority of the time your buyer is reactive and they deal with emergency circumstances that are typically timely, well, which of those channels can really solve that problem in a timely manner? And what's it going to cost to be able to solve it as fast as we need to solve it? These are the questions, that I think commonly get lost, in the translation between the agencies and the contractors. And it's hard, because the agencies are kind of a white collar industry, right? Where you deal with the contractors that are a blue collar industry. And there is a difference in communication when you start to think about it. So that communication gap that occurs between the marketing agencies and the contractors is something that I'm passionate about. That is something I take pride in. It's almost like I try to translate between the two and bring them closer together. And it's always been one of my passions here at Ryno. Like, when you look at the contractors and I'm able to tie that into my personal story, it's why I'm a passionate guy. Because it gave me life. It gave me a second life, and I was able to build a career and, a whole new life off of that. And I wouldn't have this if it wasn't for these contractors putting their faith and trust in this company. That's why I don't take it lightly. So I'm on a bit of a rant here, but at the end of the day, it's one of these things where, I just really, really want to fix that communication gap that is happening between these agencies and contractors so that they can better understand how to get aligned and help the contractor win at the end of the day.
And so thinking about your title as Chief Experience Officer, is that sort of the challenge? Is that what you do day to day? You're trying to solve those challenges of that communication gap, that experience, or how it impacts the experience?
Yeah, I love that you asked that question. It was an interesting title. The story was that I was previously the president of digital marketing, but people started getting confused. They started thinking that I was the owner, that I was the founder, and make no mistake, Chris and Anna Yano, that's them. That's their legacy. And we couldn't have that happening. So we just wanted to change the title that really stopped the confusion, because I am the third member of our executive team. And, I've always treated this company like I own it. So I felt like, hey, let's clear that up. And as we were going through different titles, what makes the most sense? Because I'm somewhat of a jackknife. I mean, I did everything, so I can go anywhere and help in any way. And we just were like looking it up, and we saw a CXO, which was a more commonly used term in larger organizations, corporate organizations that were massive in scale. But we said, it makes sense. Experience is something that not only made sense because I was the longest standing employee, but because I had the experience across the org. I wear the brand like it's my life. I am a pivotal member of our culture development. So it was just a title that allowed us to really utilize me in the ways that I was going to contribute the most value to the organization, but also really have the authority I needed to have the impact that I was capable of contributing, right?
Okay.
So I looked at it externally. The main goal was to make sure that all of our CSMs, they all rolled up to me in a forward-facing capacity. But at the same time, for employees coming on board internally, things like their experience working for this organization, it allowed me to really, have an impact on that as well.
Okay. Some of those attributes you just mentioned about yourself, that you've the jack of all trades, you've done everything, so you have experience across all those things, and it sounds like you did it with humility and hunger, right? Like you wanted to do those things to help the company, and you're a company guy, right? Like you love the brand and you love being there and you're grateful. Like those are the attributes of the best team members. Like I think everybody that listens to this would probably strive to get more of those people on their team at all times.
Appreciate
in my experience, at least, it's just, that's what you look for.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about leadership, right? So you went through MAP. You've been through a lot. You've done a lot at Ryno. How has your leadership changed? Now you're a leader at Ryno. How has your leadership changed when you look at now versus 10 years ago?
Oh, wow. This is an amazing question. Andrew, this is what I'll say to this. When I think back about how leaders develop, your general logic is just to teach them how to be you. You're like, hey, this is what I think. This is what I do. Let me show you. And I think a common misconception is that a lot of ambitious individuals are just trying to mimic what their mentor is teaching them. But I think true leadership development is helping you realize who you are. It's not teaching me how to be like you. It's helping me realize who I am, believing in me and encouraging me, influencing me, to take risks, to go into the unknown, and to learn faster by simply screwing up with a good attitude and being resilient and never, ever giving up. You see, I think the true blessing in the shooting is that I've been through hardship, and it really gave me a leg up when it came to resilience and grit and some of the characteristics, that a lot of entrepreneurs look for in leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So I was blessed. I just happened to go through hardship and I came out okay on the other side. But as I applied that mentality into leadership, and I think back, MAP was a huge help, with this. I was always my goal was just like, hey, I want to say thank you to my mentors for trusting me and believing in me. My only goal was just to learn the role and do their job so that they could go have a vacation on the beach. Like initially, that was the goal. I just said, hey, my first checkpoint is for me to be able to run this company while you go take a week-long vacation, because you've never been able to do that while you were building it. And then once they took a week, I was like, we did it. Now let's try and do 2 weeks. And it just kept trying to extend. But when I went to MAP, I had this very big epiphany because we did the DISC assessment. In personality tests, what it made me realize, I think Steve Buscemi, I think was the coach's name. I was in his class.
Yeah, Steve Buchanan. He's great.
He's amazing. And yeah. Carrie Brunson I still keep in touch with Carrie, also amazing individual. But what I realized is I was in a room with everybody. Everybody's DISC was different than mine. They were all relatively the same, because a DISC, right? You look at your personal styles versus your business styles. And while they were all relatively comparable, I flew off the chart.
What was yours?
Well, Steve had asked me, hey, how are you sleeping at night? I remember that's how he asked me. And I'm like, because this was new to me. I didn't know. And I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes. Why? So what I realized is he was guiding me into, you are trying to be someone you are not at work. You're not being who you truly are. And what it made me realize is I was trying too hard to be the people that built me.
Interesting.
But what became essential is, when I entered the executive team, I just had this epiphany. I'm like, well, what value does it bring to put me on this team if I've a spitting image of the individuals that helped me become who I am and showed me the way? I knew in that moment I needed to bring new things to the table. You just put 2 and 2 together and you say, hey, I need to add strengths to this table that these 2 don't have. Mm-hmm. And it's very obvious that I don't prefer to lead the way that, I've been leading. So long story short, man, MAP really helped me reflect and understand, that I needed to change how I lead and, and just really acknowledge and triple down on what I'm good at versus spending so much time trying to be good at things that they're just not who I am. It's just not my thing. And Absolutely. That's just one of many things, man. MAP did a lot of things for me.
That's actually really interesting what Steve said. But yeah, that's right. I mean, I think about I worked with a business partner for almost 20 years, and man, we were so polar opposite, right? Like, I'm very punctual. He was late to everything. I'm detail oriented and organized. He is not, but he had the vision, the ideas, and we just had. But when you put the 2 together, it worked really well. So similarly, like obviously you bring things to the table to your team. And so that's what you got to lean into, right? Be authentic and true to that.
Well, it's leadership, right? I mean, I think a great CEO understands that you got to really observe the strengths and the weaknesses of your individuals. Yeah. And encourage them to be proud. Be proud of your weaknesses. Be okay with the fact that you're not good at this. Be proud of what you're good at. And then it's your responsibility to really put the right people in the right places so they really lean into and benefit from where they excel. And,
Yep.
and on top of that, right, like your culture is going to be a lot more healthy when you've got individuals sitting in these seats doing things that they love, that they're also good at. And then you just got to figure out how to make the pieces come together,
Yeah.
And I think that's where people commonly miss things. They just they go, man, I got to get better at this. I got to get better at this. You don't really actually have to get better at that. You really just need to realize who you are and focus on being the best at the things you're good at.
Mhm.
And I don't want people to mistake this, because listen, discipline is a huge thing for me. Like, you got to do the things that you don't want to do, and you're not always going to love everything you do. So, I don't want your listeners to misunderstand me here. Okay. But I do think that there's a strategy and a tactic to building an elite team. And I do think that the strengths and weaknesses should be highly taken into consideration.
Totally. You can't have exact replicas of every person. You want to have some difference and build, like you mentioned, you put the pieces together, and that's why you have a really strong team.
That's right.
When you say doing things you don't want to do, I have a 16-year-old, and that's what I'm trying to hammer into his head right now. Like, yeah, I get you don't want to get up, dude. You still got to get up. I get you want to do it. You still got to do it. Like, you still got to do the things you don't want to do. It's life.
Right.
All right. You mentioned the map workshop. So you guys are busy. Ryno is growing fast. You want to move fast. Was it difficult for you to take a couple of days out to go to the workshop?
Yes, I'd be lying to you if I said it was. And some of that's my own. It's my own fault. I mean, I'm a guy, I can't turn it off. It's funny. We were all just at Stagecoach last weekend, and during the day, it's funny. I'm sitting in the room with Tommy Mello, and what I love about Tommy is like he can't turn it off. But that's kind of like I realize I'm the same way. Like if I was sitting, with three people that can't turn it off, like, dude, this would be dangerous. I would probably forget to eat. I would probably never sleep. Like, it's that much fun, So some of it's self-inflicted because I'm just always running my emails all hours of the night. I'm a 4 a.m. riser. I go to the gym, and I think some of it too is it's probably even forms of like a trauma, because like I'll walk on a treadmill and I can't just walk. I can't just walk and be present and look around. Like, I have to be doing something. I'll sit in the car with my wife and we're driving, and I'm like, what can I be accomplishing? I feel like I have to make the most out of every minute. And sometimes I think some of that might be, related to the shooting and how I apply my time. But the thing is when you do turn it off and you pay attention, man, there's so many things that we miss, And I think that's something I loved about MAP is you really do have to turn off all that crap and be present.
Yeah, it focuses. We say the same thing about, we have the monthly Vital Factor team meetings, and some are virtual, some are in person. And when we were running our businesses, I was an entrepreneur before MAP. We had multiple businesses, and we used to leave our office for our team meetings. We used to go off site with our senior consultant, and it was help just to like zoom out for a second, right? Like, your laptop's not there, your phone's not there. You're really focused and present on zooming out of the business. Okay, what's going well? What's not going well? What are we going to do to really drive this thing forward and solve problems? And I think the workshop does the same thing.
Well, it does. I mean, you guys got things like the Vital Few. I think one of the blessings that I have in my life, out of many, because I'm, gratitude is like my favorite word in the world. But I think the blessing that I want to call out is at this agency, which I would assume we are the second largest, maybe in the entire nation at this point for the home services. You get access to so many entrepreneurs, right? Because there's so many contractors. And what I love about this particular seat is that I get to talk to a lot of these business owners and entrepreneurs. And, you go to events like Ryno X, a well-respected event, where you sit with some of the most successful in the home services. And I love just sitting there, watching, listening, consuming, taking it all in. And, I look for the trends. And what I typically observe in response to what you just said, Andrew, is they have one thing in common, all of them. They will work and never stop working. So if there's that many of them that are willing to work that hard, what is the truly unique thing that separates the goods from the greats? And that's how they spend their time. Like, working hard isn't this badge of honor, it's working smart. And when I see them and how they spend their time and how they delegate and how they narrow down to the vital few, how they communicate through feedback loops to make sure messages are heard the same way. I mean, these are all map things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't surprise me on why somebody like Ken Goodrich is preaching map, because he's a legend, no doubt about it. But that's the thing, is you go watch him, listen to him, and some of these other people, you can see the differences in the way that they spend their time, who they spend it with, it's not about how hard you work, man. It's about how smart you work while you're willing to work hard.
I think that's a really good point. Working hard is kind of table stakes, right? It's like,
right.
You have to put it in, but I think there's a saying, don't confuse busyness with productivity, right? Like you could be working 24 hours a day, but you might not get that far if you're not working on the right things, if you're not doing the right things, if you're not, so
there's elements of fear too, right? I mean, fear-based, it's like when you look at progress over perfection, analysis paralysis, like those are the things that really cause like what you're describing. And I think your level of being able to risk, your willingness to go and take those chances is another factor that gets mixed into exactly what you're saying right now.
That's a huge piece. I talk about that a lot with entrepreneurs. I think most of the population is afraid. So many people I hear, like, they have ideas, they want to start a business, they want to do something, they're just afraid. They never take a leap. Or maybe you're a small business and you're afraid to take some big jump that was going to really propel you to the next phase. You got to be willing to take those chances, take a shot. And I think that people like you mentioned, Tommy Mello, Ken Goodrich, they're not afraid. They just jump right in.
They're not afraid at all.
Yeah. So I know the MAP workshop was it was 5 years ago or so. But do you remember, were there any immediate changes you made after going through? You get back to your desk, you get back to the office. Anything you change right away that you learned there?
Yeah. So I was a little bit of a unique case. And I still wonder this today, if it was a good move or a bad move. I remember Steve telling me, take a week before you make any rash decisions. And I've always wanted to be the best, man. It's just something I do. When I do something, I can't do it halfway. I feel like I just got to go all in, or I'm really stubborn and I just don't want to do it at all. Some might call it a strength, some might call it a weakness. But I do remember them saying, just take 10%. Like, if you could take 10% from this class, it's a good class. You're not going to take it all. You're going to be overly consumed, and the day after I flew back home, I went to Walmart and bought all these poster boards and started just laying out like all the big things. And I literally reconstructed my office. Like, I took things off the wall and I put these poster boards everywhere, because I was like, Steve said only retain 10. I'm going to retain 30%. I'm going to retain 30. Taking pictures, right? And I'm texting Carrie and Steve, and I'm like, 10% my ass, man. Like, the best student you've ever had. And it was funny because I brought, Chris and Anna into the office and sat them down and shared my thoughts. And they're probably just looking at the walls like, what did you do to this guy? Like, no. So, I took a lot back, but some of the things that are still like instilled to me this day, right? Pareto principle. Like, how do you get 80% of the results? How do you spend, 20% of your time, and time management in general, right? Feedback loops, communication. If I'm going to deliver a message, there are tactical ways to make sure that what you think they heard is what they actually heard, because communication breakdown is one of the most challenging parts of leadership. And I think I also recall things like, I can't remember what we called it, but it was a scale very comparable to Simon Sinek's video about the Marines, where we talk about trust, and how much team members would rather trust each other and have character over skill.
Mm.
You guys had some type of grid. I can't remember what it was called, but I loved it because it really helped you realize that without trust, you really don't have anything. And it caused me to come back to the office and really try to coach a lot of the team members to say, hey, how you did that one thing, like, do you think that that created trust, or do you think that that diminished trust? And they would reflect and go, yeah, that's a good point. And then next thing you know, you would see people doing things differently. Like an email would come through, and rather than just like do nothing and assume that they can trust you to read it, they would actually like do, hey, got it, confirmed, good. And they realize that that creates this experience across the org. You're like, okay, I don't have to worry about the fact, like, did you miss that email? Did you miss that message?
Yeah.
Little things like that. Like the team just started building better cohesion because they started reflecting on the minute things that really like is what creates trust. So even to this day, like every employee that comes into Ryno has to sit through an orientation with me as soon as they're done with Anna. And that's what we talk about. We talk about trust, how trust is built. We talk about how people buy on the internet using trust. We talk about how teams are built on trust. Any Ryno in here will tell you that, it's funny, I call it the T. And that's what they joke about. They're like, oh,
I love that.
that's the word. That's the word.
But that's good coaching. That's good leadership right there, right? You're setting you're setting the expectation. This is what we expect of you, and this is how we do things at Ryno.
That's exactly it. And I think it's also important as leaders to understand. My good friend Lou Habike always says this. He says, it's not always about you.
Mm.
So one of the first things I try to do, like when I get a new team member or employees that come in is, hey, what do you want in your life? And many of them don't know. So how do you guide them to get to know themselves or develop a life plan and do the work? Because all that I want, like I can tell you what Ryno wants. I can tell you our goal. I can tell you why you're in this role and why we chose you. But if I don't make the effort to know what you want in your personal life, how am I able to bring us together so that we understand our parallel paths are going to get you what you're after?
Yep.
Because if you don't see the value in the end result of what you're here for, well, how are you going to be passionate about this job? It doesn't ultimately get you to where you want to go and equate to the end result. So to me, one of the first things you got to do as a leader is get to know your person personally. What makes them tick? What do they want? I get it. You're here for a paycheck and a job, but you want that paycheck and a job for a reason. So how do we help you get to that end result? Try to make an effort to connect with them personally, because if you have that relationship, then we can have more transparent conversations like us Jersey folks do, right? We speak and then we think. But like we have a connection and we trust each other, we can have difficult conversations, which allows the machine to go faster because we know it's never an attack on character. We just need to win or learn, and we go faster. I mean, these are some of the things of leadership that I think are essential, to be able to get the system to work the way that you want it to.
I think that's super powerful. And I think a lot of people don't slow down to do those things, to actually take the time to understand, look, everybody's different. Some people just want money. Some people, once they get enough for the basics, they could care less. It's just so you have to understand what's going to motivate and what they're really striving for. I think that's super important.
Right. I mean, create the scoreboard, man. That's it. Like every employee needs to know what winning looks like. Mm-hmm. They need to know how to know if they're actually on pace to win or lose. And that's every position. The easy ones, sales, right? But every single position in the company has to have some type of incentive, motivator, driver that ultimately equates to winning.
Yep.
And we all need to know what it looks like and how it benefits them in their lives.
You mentioned scoreboard. So another guest we had on at their company, everybody has their own basically vital factor spreadsheet or scoreboard for their individual role that they review on a monthly basis. And I thought that was kind of unique to them. Is there anything unique? Look, MAP is Management Action Program, right? And here we try to get at least one nugget from everybody that's on, something actionable that the audience might be able to implement at their company. Is there anything unique that you guys do that you might be able to share that you think is awesome that other people could potentially implement to help with their business?
Totally. It's one of my favorites. It's the brainchild of Anna Yano. And I can tell you, no matter what I do in my life, it's something that I will probably always take with me. And it's very simple. We call it right, wrong, missing, and confusing. And what they do is every single year, we basically will allow an anonymous form. And it's legit, like legit anonymous. It's not, we don't say it, and you can figure it out. Like there's no way that you can tell who this is unless they like blow their own cover in the response. But what they do is they have the ability to write a summary of what we're doing right, summary of what we're doing wrong, missing, confusing. Now listen, we've got somewhere around 400 employees. So what we do is after they submit all that feedback at the end of the year, our executive team locks ourselves, at a retreat for 2 days, and we literally go and read through every single piece of feedback, and we tally up where we see the consistencies across the board. So we know, and I always warn people, it's funny because like it's when you're passionate about the business and you care about the people, right? Like remember 3 of those are negatives, 1's a positive. Finish with the right, because it's exhausting and emotional when you hear what's confusing, what's missing, what's wrong. Like you just feel really beat up and it's heavy.
Yeah, for sure.
But once you get that tally together, then what we do is we start off the year with what we call a kickoff. And in the kickoff, we build all of our initiatives and objectives for the year based around the things that they say are the 3 problem points. And what it did for us is it created a culture that made everybody proud and passionate because they felt heard. They saw that we were going to address the things that were making them unhappy. And then we had systems in place to give progress updates about the things that we were correcting course on based upon the feedback that they gave. And the fact that they felt so appreciated, heard, and valued would naturally move the needle when you looked at things like P&Ls and balance sheets. But don't get me wrong, we have KPIs, we have scorecards, we have these things for these departments. But when the entire initiative for the year is themed, and it's based upon like what's being said, and in that same meeting, we also reflect. We look at last year and we basically say, did we do the things we said we were going to do? If we didn't, here's why we didn't, because you deserve that excuse and that explanation. And it was always about making sure that the company saw we didn't just talk. We do. We have action. Yeah. You'll hear Chris say it all the time on the podcast, right? He says, don't talk about it, be about it. Like a lot of that is that mentality. Like we just care so much that these guys see that we actually do the things we said we're going to do. So that was a big one, and everyone that's tried it loves it, man. I hope your viewers love it as much as we do.
I like that. I like that a lot. But it's also you guys make sure you're not just collecting the feedback, you're actually doing something with it. And that's a huge piece, right? Because I think, if you ask people for their feedback and they give it and then nothing happens with it, you're going to break that trust. They're like, well, you're not listening anyway. So what's the point of me speaking up?
Well, you can build a plan off of it. That's the other beautiful thing. It's like, if we're taking too long to launch a website and that becomes like one of the key factors, that we're going to address, you can take those rocks and build objectives, checkpoints to really break it down because it's such a big thing. Yeah. And it just causes your leaders to really be able to hone in on what 3 to 5 major things are that they can focus on amongst their teams. And I think the other thing is it's very important. Like your scoreboard needs to be there because you really got to lean into everybody's strengths. You have different leaders that lead differently, but you can't force them to lead the same way. Otherwise, they're not really tapping into who they are. So it's important that our systems have enough grace and freedom for them to get tactical, and to really take their own approach to create that morale and that influence, so that we can really get the full value out of the people that we placed in the seats.
You guys are doing that. I like your approach there. Well, so you've been through a ton, man, and you've had a lot of experience there at Ryno. We like to ask leaders here if they could go back and talk to their younger selves. What's one thing you would tell your younger self about, leadership, business, what success is going to look like, or building a successful company like Ryno that matters?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm going to make it really simple. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. That's it. If I had known that 10 years ago, that I was exactly where I was supposed to be at all times, it would have made things a lot easier, because I think one common thing that happens is, on a color code, I'm a yellow red, which technically makes me more of an emotional person, and that can be a strength or a weakness if you don't control it, right? So when you get overwhelmed or you have like a lot on your shoulders and you're carrying the burden, it can feel heavy, and sometimes because you have such high expectations for yourself, especially guys like us, like we're always in it and we always want to be the best. And part of that is a curse. We'll go all the way to the grave chasing something that we never actually get. And hard days come from that. So if I understood that lesson 10 years ago, that I'm always right where I'm supposed to be, I think it would have made it a lot easier for me to look at things at certain moments and say, good. Listen to Jocko Willink, right? Like he tells a story about how some of his squad would come to him and talk to him about his problems. And what did he say? He just looked at him and he'd say, good.
Yeah.
And if I
I heard that clip and I like that.
It's all good.
Yeah. Which is hard. That's a hard mindset to have, man. I mean, I as you were saying that, I'm like thinking about myself, and it's hard, right? I have that same competitive mindset. I never stop working. I never stop doing anything, like just like you were saying, like in the car. And so it's hard to think like, but you're right though. Not that you're wrong. It's just that it's hard to have that mindset.
Yeah, it's for sure. I mean, it's not an easy thing, and I definitely don't want to give viewers and listeners, the perception that it's that easy, but I do think that it is a muscle that grows over time, and you have to break down a process to get there, and some of the things that I can offer that are practical for your audience is get up and go to the gym and be consistent with it. Because I'm telling you, when you start to see your body change, confidence grows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. If you're not that person and you're not going to the gym, that's okay. Then at least do me a favor, write. Sit down and write a page a day every single morning. And if you can't write a paragraph and that's too much for you, write 2 sentences. I mean, even if you can just open up a page and write one thing you're grateful for every single day, or one thing that you're struggling with that is going to make you better. What you're doing is the art of repetition. It's the rule of 7. I mean, even if you can get through 20 to 30 days of doing something consistent, you start to reprogram your thoughts and your habits.
What's the rule of 7?
The rule of 7 is how something is retained. Like what we teach in marketing is like, you see a billboard once or twice, you're going to get a different outcome if I see the billboard on the same freeway 7 times.
Okay.
I remember it. I retain it. It's a learning tactic. But for things like habits, page a day, the gym, like you really should honestly be doing 30 days nonstop. Because the problem is we give up too fast. Like what we need to do is do it long enough just to see and feel and notice a difference. And other things you can do is put that positive message. Like some people think I'm weird, man, but come walk through my house. Come sit in my car. Like you will see little tiny sticky notes and reminders, literally like Jocko. Good. You know what I mean? Like you gotta like see it. You gotta hear it. You gotta feel it. Like if you take your sensories and you are constantly seeing something, hearing something, consuming something, writing something, you do it over and over and over and over again, you reprogram. And that's how you start to really fix that challenge that we call it hard. It gets easier because we start to live within it consistently.
I like that. Yeah, I'm a very visual person too. I like that. I'm going to have to start using some of those sticky notes like you. I like that.
Yeah.
I remember reading the David Goggins book and he talked about that. They put him up on the mirror.
He's got the sticky notes. That's funny. I have a tattoo right here on my thigh. It says, "What a lovely day," but it's backwards. And I did it that way because you have to look in the mirror to see it the right way. And it reminds me like, this is a choice, So every morning, like, I'll be wearing my shorts and I just see it right on my knee. Like when I get out of bed and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I got to choose that, So it depends how crazy you want to get, man. It doesn't have to be sticky notes. Just find ways to get it in front of you all the time. I'm crazy.
Just get a tattoo. Just get.
Yeah. It's just one
But
thing now.
but you're right. It is a choice. The mentality is a choice. Well, cool, man. This has been awesome. I could probably ask you 1,000 questions, but I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you sharing it with us and the audience. Before we wrap up, where can people go to learn more about you or Ryno?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. Ryno, just go to rynoss.com. That's Ryno Strategic Solutions. You got everything you need there. You can track us all down. Me personally, I live my life on the record. Like, I've been constantly just putting out content over and over and over because I truly want to help the world and make a difference. I do a lot of leadership development content in my social channels. I'm always giving marketing advice to anyone that I can. Facebook is where I do a lot of like my industry interaction, but you can find me on any single social platform. Just type in my name and please add me, message me, follow me. It's funny. I tell people all the time, like, I live my life on the record. If you message me, I will respond. I will help. I'll get on a call with you. I'm not going to charge you. Like, but people just don't do it. And I just never understand why people don't take advantage of, individuals that genuinely want to help them win.
I don't know, but that's very gracious of you. Fear, maybe anxiety. I don't. Who knows? But that's very nice of you. Hopefully, people do reach out, and I hope some of our audience and clients that could take advantage of Ryno reach out as well.
Absolutely.
This has been killer, man. Thank you so much again. We really appreciate it, and everybody listening, we will see you next time. Thank you.
Appreciate your time, Andrew. Thank you, everybody.
All right, take care.